Hey guys, Pearce Dietrich here with DraftKings TV. This week NASCAR goes to Atlanta. Now Atlanta is a lot different than Daytona. At Daytona, basically all cars are created equal and they run together during the entire race. At Atlanta, it's the complete opposite. Cars are not all created equal. There will be a big gap and divide between the good teams and the smaller teams. The big team drivers are actually going to lap the small team drivers. This is an intermediate track. It's a 1.5-mile oval. What makes it unique is that it hasn't been repaved in about 20 years. And so the track's slick, it's going to tear up tires, and from a DFS perspective, we're going to see a lot of cautions, so it is possible to get some of those long shots, if they can survive the cautions, to work their way up through the field. Now, the other big part of this week is that NASCAR is implementing a new 2016 rules package, and this is a low downforce package. They tested it last year at Kentucky and Darlington. The fans loved it. What this basically means is while you're driving your car into the corner, the cars use the aerodynamic downforce, so the air flowing over it, to hold the tires to the ground. Well, now this year they're going to get a little bit less of that air pushing down, and so if they drive too fast, their tires lose contact with the concrete, and instead of the car turning, the car goes straight into the wall. So what we're going to see is some cars are not going to push it very hard. They're going to go slow, and those are the ones that are going to get passed. The cars that push it to the max are going to pass cars, and they're going to lead. Now, the guys who push it a little bit too far, they're going to end up in the wall, and they're going to wreck. So we could see some of these studs ending up with some pretty bad days because of the new rules package. Let's look at the research that we do when we go into one of these intermediate tracks. One of the things that we want to look at is what have they done over the last 15 races, kind of get an idea of, are they going up, are they going down, are they in a groove, what have they done at Atlanta in the past, what have they done at intermediate tracks in the past. But the two stats that I love the most this week is to look at what did they do at Kentucky last year, what did they do at Darlington last year. And if we look at Kentucky and Darlington, we'll see a trend, and that says that Joe Gibbs Racing and that Team Penske were excellent. They were by far the top of the class, and those are probably the guys that we want to target again this week. Now, different from Daytona is that we really got to focus on laps led and fast laps. They are going to be the big-time moneymaker, key points to really score this week. And those normally come from your top 10 qualifiers. How do we know who's going to run the fast laps? Who do we know who's going to lead laps? Well, if you look at practice speeds, you look at qualifying times, you get an idea who are the best cars. We really want to get the best cars with the best drivers. And sometimes you're going to want to burn 3 to 4 picks on nailing these guys because they can score 60, 70, 90, 100, even 150 points. You really got to nail that number one guy who's going to be out front, running out front all day. Place differential, probably not as big this week. Place differential, we really only want to target that if someone looks really good in practice but has a poor qualifying effort, then we like place differential. Also, if we're taking a long shot, then we're going to take some stabs at place differential. But really, this week's all about laps led and fast laps. And we get those practice speeds at the DraftKings playbook. So go over to the playbook, check out who is fast in practice, and then make your picks. Now, if we look at studs this week, Kyle Busch is the number one stud. The first reason is he just loves a loose race car. This is the guy who loves to push a car to the max. He will take risks that no one else will. He can get more out of a car than any other driver. He obviously won the championship last year. He won at Kentucky last year and raced well at Darlington last year as well. So everything is in his favor. I believe everybody's going to want to be on him. The only issue that we run into with Kyle Busch is sometimes he pushes it too hard and he could wreck. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, this guy's a skilled driver. He will have his days where he wrecks, but I don't think this week will be that week. Brett Keselowski, another guy. He didn't win at Kentucky. He didn't win at Darlington, but in both races he scored over 100 fantasy points. Last season he was the best intermediate track driver. Had a really underrated season, and that's okay because he's going to come in a little underpriced. I love where he's salaried at this week. Also, another Joe Gibbs Racing driver to go along with Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards. Speaking of underrated and underpriced, Carl Edwards is the second best intermediate track driver in NASCAR. He won at Darlington last year. And then our other check mark, he was in the top 5 at Kentucky. So he passes basically all of our eyeball tests this week. We really want to see, though, with these studs, how they do in practice. But I'm pretty much guaranteeing that they're going to be top 5 in practice. I really love these guys. Now, going on the sleepers. You can go with any 5K guy if the race plays out with the theory that we're going to see cautions. Any of these 5K guys can score if they get their way from the 30s into the 20s just by avoiding wrecks. The top 5K guy that I like is Ty Dillon because he's going to be going into a top-notch ride filling in for Tony Stewart. Now, if you go up a little bit, Eric Almirola, you got to spend a little bit more, so it might limit your ability to roster a stud, but I love Almirola in cash games. 28 top 20s last year. He finished in the top 15 at Kentucky and at Darlington. He's just a consistent, safe pick. Always take him in cash games. Sometimes he limits you a little bit in GPP, but I think he'll definitely get you in the money. Don't know if he's going to be the winning pick in the GPPs, but he definitely could get you in the money. Now, the next two guys I want to look at are dirt track racers, guys that love race cars that are loose. Kyle Larson has kind of been the next big thing for a little while. We're waiting on him to have that breakout season, and a lot of people believe this year is going to be his breakout year with this new loose race car. But similar to Kyle Busch, I mean, we could almost call this guy Kyle Busch Jr., he could score big one week, but he also is going to run the risk of pushing his car too far and going into the wall. Same thing with Casey Kane. What I like about Casey Kane is obviously he's a veteran. He loves loose race cars, but he's coming off of a really bad year. So he's going to be under-owned in a lot of leagues. He's probably going to be under-owned all year. So I like this opportunity to really differentiate myself in GPPs. Now, there's a little bit of a risk there, but you really could separate yourself from the rest of the field with Casey Kane or even Kyle Larson. I do not like those guys in cash games. Let's look at the favorites. Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, favorites all last year, and they're going to be favorites all this year. They are probably two of the best drivers in the last 10 years. Now, I do not like them as much this week, not because of anything they've done. They both had success at Atlanta. Jimmy Johnson is the best intermediate track driver in NASCAR. The thing is, Joe Gibbs Racing, Team Penske are just that much better in this 2016 low downforce ride. Now, as the weeks progress, and Hendrick Motorsports and Stuart Haas get a better grip of it, then yeah, I'm going to jump more on Harvick and Johnson. But right now, JGR, Team Penske, they basically have a head start on the rest of the field. Kyle Busch obviously is another favorite, and he's not even one of the highest priced guys. I really like Kyle Busch this week as well. Now, let's jump into my final thoughts. I believe it's going to be a pretty action-packed race. I believe we're going to see a lot of wrecks. So I'm thinking I'm going to go with 2 punts and then really stack my lineup. Some people might say it's crazy, but that's actually been the winning GPP recipe in the past. Taking 2 punts that survived the chaos and really loading up my lineup with guys that are going to lead laps and guys that are going to score fast laps because those guys can get into the hundreds. One last thing, don't forget to check out the playbook because you really need to get on the playbook, not just to see the Kentucky and Darlington stats, which are there, but also to check those practice times. Practice times, qualifying times are vital to making your decision on who's going to lead laps, who's going to run fast laps. So jump on over to DraftKings, enter a couple contests, have a great weekend watching the Atlanta race. I'm Pearce Dietrich. This is DraftKings TV. I will see you guys next time.